Today on Waiting for the Encore, my guest is Ian Graham. Ian is the lead singer and guitar player of the heavy rock trio The Well. He has toured all over the world and maintains a very humble and grateful outlook on his life and profession. He's talented and insightful and a great guest for me to have on the show, so please enjoy my convo with Ian Graham. All right. Ian Graham, thank you for being here today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for doing this.
No
So
problem.
let's jump right into it. And how have you been doing? What's been your day to day? And I guess what happened for you personally back in mid-March when all was going normal and then all was completely different? So did you kind of have to stop in your tracks with the band, and just tell us how that whole process went for you?
We had just gotten back from a long European tour that led into a long North American tour. And so we just beat it. Like, we were in Milan when this went down. I mean, we're just days afterwards, they locked it down. We got home.
Wow.
Which was weird because, everybody was whispering about it over there, but it wasn't like a big deal,
Wow.
And then we got home. We're here for a couple of days and hit the West Coast, and we were hearing on the news is Milan's locked down, and like people are dying. It was just really surreal. And, we didn't take it that seriously. I mean, we knew it was bad, but it was like, okay, whatever. It's not going to like lock the world down or anything. And when we got home, sure enough, that's what happened. And so it's been like, okay, this festival gets canceled. Okay, this tour gets canceled. And so now it's just completely up in the air.
That's crazy. You were in Italy, which was, of course,
Milan. 2 shows in Milan.
Oh my God. You guys literally just beat it. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, and then when you guys kind of got back home, that was it. The brakes were on. And so what have you been keeping yourself busy with since then?
Actually, it's been a much healthier lifestyle than I've lived in about 5 or 6 years.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. I just got into exercise, skateboarding again, like every day. I have a regimen. I wake up,
Nice.
make some coffee, read, I've gone through tons of books. I'm into cleaning my room regularly, weird, shit like that. But yeah, it's been a lot of time to do healthy stuff. Really, it's been super positive, except for the whole disease thing. But
yeah, no, that's I can concur with that. I've been able to kind of get into things and approach weaknesses of my own and fill in gaps professionally and personally. And the people I've talked to, it's been a lot of the same. So at least we can look at that in a positive light.
I wasn't spending this much time, doing these things. And I don't have a problem being alone necessarily. I'd like to go out and have last call at a bar, of course, but I mean, like, during the day I can be left alone to my own devices and be a pretty happy person. And I had forgotten that, and I think that's really kind of a cool thing at all this. I try to find all the cool things,
Yeah. Have you been, I think a lot of us artists are kind of in that same boat. Have you been able to maintain some sort of, person-to-person contact through this? Are you living on your own? Do you have roommates,
Sure.
stuff like that?
I have, my brother lives with me, and it's like the house is kind of separated, so I have to go outside to reach that part of the house. But yeah, I have that. And he's also an artist, so he's just working all the time, like, visual art stuff. And so that's a good energy to have too, like to keep that kind of thing going. Well, in the band, we talk, we live very close together. We have a practice space. We haven't been using it, but we did some recording individually in it. We're going to end up practicing again soon, probably, because we want to work on some stuff to put out. And it's been odd. We have, instead of going to the bar, you have drinks out in the yard, the safe distance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's still social contact with our close friends that are like, doing the thing properly. But
yeah, that sounds like you're being safe, which is good. Well, I want to get into all the Well stuff and everything like that. But before we do that, let's kind of go back to the wee little boy, Ian, and where he got started with his guitar. And why don't you tell us where you're from? And then also when you started playing guitar and when music became more than just a love and more of a kind of direction.
I was actually born in Southern Illinois, in Mount Vernon, Illinois, which is a very small town, and it's like, edge of a cornfield and shit, and walk dirt roads to school and all that, and through fields. And we moved to Texas when I was 12. My dad was a musician. That whole side of the family was, so it was always there. My mom was really young. They were both really young, just into rock and roll and stuff. So, and horror movies and shit like that. So like that just imprinted me the whole time. And got into punk rock very early. I was probably about 9 or 10. This is like the late 80s. And I was a skateboarder, like mainly, that was just obsessed with music, like thrash and punk and stuff like that. And then I just was mainly into skateboarding the whole time, but I always knew I was going to play music. My father being a drummer in metal bands back then, I ended up with his set when I was 16 years old, and he taught me how to play. So that was my first instrument, and I would play in bands, and we would do like Velvet Underground and Jimi Hendrix covers and shit like that. We were really psych based, and that was the beginning. So about 4 years I did that, and I was always skateboarding. I ended up with an injury, and I started playing bass, and I wrote all the time. So that just kind of worked better. I wanted to be in the front anyway, so I would write songs on bass. I had another guitar player, and we would do that. Yeah. And just like, that just continued on. Just like a handful of bands. And I found out really fast that I was not cut out to be in other people's bands, because I had to. I was, I wasn't a great musician as far as like doing covers and following people at all. It's like I have to make the shit up, because like I just feel weird. I mean, I sit at home and like, whatever, like learn some songs or whatever, but I rarely can handle covers and stuff like that. So it was always like me just making stuff up that kind of sounded like other people's shit since I was a kid. And
yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. That's pretty much the same boat I'm in. I've had people, like my grandma,
and it's just
way back.
It's nothing personal to anybody. I just can't fucking join your band. It's always been that way.
Yeah, people say, well, why don't you pick up some side gigs and do that? And I'm like, that's just not my skill set. It is a skill. It's like I almost wish it was a little bit more, to be honest. But
you can make more money.
Yeah, you make more money, but my whole trajectory in music has always been based around just making my own shit, or at least working with another person or two where we kind of work on each other's shit a little bit. But
but like the main driving force usually just kind of has to be me. And it's really working with musicians, you find that people are like way more into being like, oh, awesome, I'd like to embellish on your idea and stuff like that, when I just had a hard time with that kind of stuff.
For sure,
it would always have to be
Yeah, for sure. I still don't have as good an ear as many of my peers do, in terms of, lots of people we know. And maybe you can do this or maybe not, but they can just pick up on shit real fast. And I'm not horrible, but I can't pick up stuff as fast as other people. I have to kind of sit down with it, and it's just more time consuming.
It's probably just some narcissism I have. I just won't allow that to happen. Solos I can figure out pretty good, those notes, but man, some of those chord stuff, I'm like, isn't that what it is? Like, no, that's not it.
Yeah. So when you and your family moved to Texas, what city did you guys move to?
We moved to Bryan, Texas, which is closer to Houston. It's right by it's College Station and Bryan are like one thing. That's where Texas A&M University is. A very conservative area. What's rad about it, though, there was a good skate scene. This is 1991, showing how old I am. But so there was actually a cool skate scene, and back then there'd be like 12 skaters in a town or whatever. And I really liked that, and a lot of cool spots. But it also had this club. This club was called the Stafford Opera House, and it was run by this guy who just did not pay attention to any rules. And downtown Bryan was run down. It was derelict. And between Houston and Austin, there's one club, and it was Stafford Opera House. And everybody came there, like Fugazi, Dinosaur Jr., in this little town. So at 12 years old, we would convince my mom that my friend's mom said it was okay for him to go. And, and we would do vice versa stuff. So our moms would be, confuse our moms into thinking that, oh, his mom said it was okay. And they would drop us off at this club at like 12 or 13 years old.
Wow.
and we would get, and there was no, this is pre-95, so it was really easy to have an all ages show. So yeah, I saw so many bands come through there, and that was huge. So we're going to this weird, very violent middle school, and then just waiting for the weekend to just go and be like in this world that like no one fucking knew about, especially in 1992, 91.
So
yeah,
if
and that
you
was a
were,
huge fucking influence.
you said you were 12, 13 when that was going on?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that must have been everything, man.
It
And
was, and it makes you feel like a badass too.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you can't explain it to anybody because nobody gives a shit. First of all, because it's that early on in this whole thing. I mean, like grunge was just doing its thing, and people were like, "Oh, what is this?" I mean, this was fucking still punk rock. I mean, we're seeing industrial bands and shit. It was rad.
And your pops was a metal drummer?
Yeah, he played like in local bands in Illinois and stuff like that. He played in St. Louis and some of the, bigger cities around, but it was mainly like he made money doing it, like cover bands. And then he'd play with some other bands that were doing their own thing, but, it never turned into anything big, but he was such an excellent drummer though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you said you started drumming at 16 and then went to bass. And I know you, of course, as a guitar player. So when did you pick up the guitar as more of a primary thing?
I mean, like I was like 27.
Wow. Wow. Well, you're a killer player, but I'm sure the bass and drums help a lot with implementing.
I just play it like a drum. like that just, I just play it like a drum. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you can, that also comes through, man, because your riffs are, they're powerful, they're simple, and they're just, there's no,
I keep
no fat on them. It's just, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'm all about that kind of sound myself. So I really dig your riffs. But so I believe I read in the Well bio, you probably had a few bands, but from like, well, let's see here. So were you playing guitar before you were in the Well? Were you when you were in band prior? Were you doing drums, bass, guitar?
Yeah, I was in a couple bands. Really, I was in this band that was on Volcom Records called Single Frame, and it was like electro clash, like kind of avant-garde. And that's how I learned to play guitar, because their guitarist quit. I played bass. I was in another band at the time called Volume, which was my band. And these guys were like, I can play bass. It's going to be more like, they wanted arty shit. So they didn't care if I couldn't play. And they're already on Volcom Records, right? So I could fucking like fly and play CMJ in New York and shit like that. Just like I came out of the garage to that. But I had to learn how to play this guitar, and it had all these pedals and shit. So the other guitarist was pretty much a genius, and he taught me how to play all this stuff, but I could just play this stuff. Like I could just play their songs because it was intricate things throughout, not a lot of chording. And I just memorized all this shit and had to play with all these pedals and like syncopation and shit like that throughout. So that was like no one's ever talked to me about this. That was like, this crash course. It was like sink or swim, like, okay, boom. And then you're playing shows with people in front of you and shit, and this is not your band. Right. And that's how I found real fast that I wasn't good at joining other people's bands, but it also taught me how to play the fucking guitar. So it was,
well, that's a great
in a weird way.
That's a great quote. They were arty, and so they didn't care if I couldn't play or anything.
Well, yeah.
That kind of sheds light on the avant-garde itself.
On my end.
Right.
The keyboardist and the drummer kind of held it down and doing their effects and stuff. And it was more noise on mine as long as I was in the area of it and kind of playing like the old songs like they already had. It was it was weird. It was a really weird experience that I mean, like no one else had that experience with the guitar. That was my main first fucking jump in. It was weird.
So how long have you been in Austin for? What time did you come into Austin?
I've been here for like 20 years. Yeah.
So was that band out of Austin that you were just talking about?
Yeah, actually, it came from Brian too. It was a good friend of mine, my friend Adrian Henry, who owned the skate shop in town, which was also a boutique, which was also a record store, which also we all worked at, and there. So, and he's a few years older than me, just a couple. and we all moved together. And I was the youngest, you know, I was like the kid and the whole thing. And then his band got really good reviews on Pitchfork, like perfect. And then he sold all these CDs overnight, and then it was like boom for him and Single Frame, the band. And I was just there. I was a skateboarder that was going to college, you know, and like living in that house with him. And after that happened, I got injured, which led to me really focusing on like learning how to play bass. And then,
did you fuck up a leg or something in terms of the drumming? You couldn't do the drumming anymore?
I was just going back and forth that I'd be in a band and I wouldn't be in a band, and my drums were not, I couldn't move with them, so they were in Bryan. So when I would come to visit my parents, I would play. Like, it was a real weird, because I was mainly focused still on skateboarding, like constantly. So, and I was here, and I broke one ankle one year, and then the other one the next, almost to the day. It was October. So that screwed me up, and it gave me a lot of downtime for those 2 years. And that's really when I started playing a string instrument and sitting on the edge of the bed or whatever.
Right.
And it was in Austin, you know, and everybody in Austin was in a band back then.
Right. Still kind of that way.
Still kind of that way. Yeah. It's changing. It's
changing.
It
is changing. No. Yeah. Like when I was, I've been here about 10 years. And the first 5 years, it was like that. And now it's there's a lot more business types in it, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Isn't it weird? Like every day, because I still picture it as much as I talk about it. I'm like, oh, Austin's changed and shit like that. In my head, I still picture it as it was. I guess it's kind of like growing up with somebody or something. You picture them like they were in 8th grade all the time, you know, until you go out with them and you're like, shit, you know, you packed on some pounds or whatever the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I picture Austin. Then I go drive around and look at stuff, and I'm like, fuck, this really isn't the city, you know?
And now this whole thing is, I mean, this is a real watershed. Who knows what's going to come out of this? I mean, a lot of people fighting through this.
Yeah.
Venues and everything.
I know when this comes back, I think it's going to be awesome when it comes back. I think there's just going to be like no venues. I think there's going to be like a couple venues. I think that's actually going to make things thrive in a weird way. It's going to fuck things up in a weird way. It's just going to be a different city.
Yeah.
Every city's going to be a different city after this in America, you know?
No doubt. Yeah. I feel like these pop-up situations or curators kind of, you know, whether it's backyard or driving, parking lot shows, and that could kind of fill the gap for a few years. And then hopefully things will kind of get back to some kind of normalcy or whatever. But
yeah, I think with the vaccination, I think that's going to fix things.
Yeah. So when did you start getting into a band or groups that were kind of more into the sound that you guys are pumping in with the Well, kind of that heavy gloom blues, heavy riff kind of thing?
I played music that was kind of, well, in the beginning, I was, you know, it was more like I was really obsessed with like Johnny Thunders and Joy Division and shit like that. Like let's say 2000, yeah. And so like it was always gloomy for me. Like I can't write, you know. My catharsis is just darker subject matter because it's like, you know, it's probably the horror thing I was raised with, and like I just like that stuff. And I think I purge it in myself, so I'm not really necessarily like that. But that's what comes out. And no matter what band I was in, I was always writing heavy-handed introspective shit, you know? So this just made more sense. I started hanging out. I worked with a guy in a band called The Roller, which is a really cool band from here in Austin. And they were like fucking doom sludge, like Southern sludge stuff. And I didn't know about all that shit. I knew about Black Sabbath. It was always my favorite band, but I was never going to play that music. I'd heard of Pentagram, but I wasn't, you know, and that's Mike from The Roller. I worked with him, and he was like, oh, well, you like metal too? Because I was like, yeah, I was obsessed when I was a kid. I'm not anymore, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, check this band out. So Pentagram, Surler, Baltimore, all these fucking bands. And I was like, other people did this shit. It wasn't just Black Sabbath. It was really weird, like profound to me. And I was like, fuck, this is really cool. So I was just like, all right, I sat at home and kind of messed with it. And I was like, it came out of me fucking more naturally than anything else ever had. It was like I was pushing anything else out.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is because it's like a drum, you know, it's like do 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 do, you know, that kind of shit when you're
Yeah.
riffing,
Mm-hmm.
and it made things so much more fucking easy for me. It was like I'd been scratching with a rock, and somebody gave me a Sharpie for the first time, you know, like
Yeah.
literally.
Mm.
So that was the thing. It was always gloomy. I'm like, everything just fell together for me. I was like, this is how it is. And I can add anything to it. You could put synth in this and it doesn't, you know, just, yeah, it was very nice.
For
Very
sure.
good.
So, because reading the bio again for the Well, I noticed that there was some precursor to the Well that sent you off in a direction of, you know, I guess it's read something like retribution or revenge was involved with
Oh.
Guitar Hero band or whatever. But so what was the project like before, whatever that meant, if whether that was just kind of romanticizing it or whatever. What was the group like before the Well, and then talk about those early days of the Well a little bit.
I was just in another band with Jason, and I got they just kicked me out because I wasn't partying with them and doing their thing, and I was a different person. I seemed pretentious, I guess, and yeah, I just I like to be around a certain level of work environment when I am in work mode, and we were partying a bunch in that band, you know, just a lot of drugs and alcohol, you know, and constantly. And then I was like, I pulled away, and then they're like, well, we'll fire you. And then the band lasts like 5 seconds after that. But, and after that, because that was more stuff like the Kinks, you know, shit like that. And like the Libertines and like bands like that. I mean, it was kind of like this Brit kind of slightly punkish shit. And then I was like, I want to crush everything I've ever fucking done. And this is the sound that it makes, right? And that's the Well.
Yeah. Oh,
and that was the decision. Yeah. And then we got Jason. Because me and Lisa had been writing in the garage together for a while. And it was like a lark, you know, we were just doing it for fun. And then it was like, fuck, we've got some material. Let's get Jason. And I'll know he'll love it. So we'll just steal him from the band he's in, right? So we get him there, like, yeah, let's record this demo with us, just do a couple practices. And he was just like, fuck, this is so fun, you know? And yeah, and he's back with me again, you know? And it was just like, he's like, yeah, within days, he was just like, I can't do this with this other band anymore. And he was like, let's full force. And we practiced 4 times a week, you know? Yeah. And we were fucking practice like 16 hours a week and shit like that. Like we went nuts. And there was no other bands. There was no other bands doing that shit here. There was like the Roller, which was like way bigger and heavier than us. And yeah, it was just really, you know, and at the beginning we thought we were going to be like kind of like the Cramps and, you know, with some Black Sabbath thrown in. Like we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. Mm-hmm. So, and then, but yeah.
But it just kind of took on its own, became its own life force. Yeah.
It really did, like a child. Like it was like this child that grew up real fucking quick. And then we were just kind of serving it. Like this whole fucking time it's been that way, you know.
Yeah, that comes
9 years, you know.
9 years, man. Good for you guys. And the same lineup through 9 years, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nobody else could deal with us.
Well, the first time I saw you guys, we were playing right before you. I think it was during South by, and it was out on the south side. I think Indian Rollers where it was, and
oh yeah.
And that was the first time I'd seen you, and then that was I mean, that sound just jumps right out, and it, like you described it, it's its own thing, it's its own baby, and it just comes right out, and the sound is just in front of you. And you three are all, you guys had I mean, she had the long hair when I saw you. I think she's since then, but you guys all had the same length hair, all stacks.
Yeah.
And so simple, but so immediately the sound just jumps on you, and it's such like a gelatinous, pleasant, warm, heavy groove that I just stood and watched the whole set. And
well, thank you, because that's how I feel about it too.
Yeah,
it's my like little sauna, my purge. You know, that noise. You know, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to talk to you about some of your guys' travels as a band.
Oh yeah,
I've been fortunate enough to do extensive touring across the states, but I've never been overseas, and I know you guys have done quite a bit overseas. And I know you guys went to Nepal, right? Did you guys go to Nepal?
Yeah.
So what were some of your I know European travel can be kind of a mixed bag of very exciting because you're across the world sharing your craft, and kind of a real schlep because you're crossing country lines and borders and
Yeah,
a lot to
yeah.
deal with.
We
So
got really familiar really fucking fast. It was like, yeah.
how many tours have you guys done across the pond over there?
We've been there like 7 times in 3
Wow.
years.
Wow.
Yeah. 7 or 8 times. I don't fucking know.
What-
And they weren't all tours. A handful of tours, maybe 5 or so. And then we did some festivals where we do like 3 or 4 shows, right? And we flew to Helsinki just for one night.
Wow.
And then we started an
Wow.
American tour. So we went there, did the festival, got paid, flew back. And talk about jet lag for 4 days, you know. And then like the next night we're playing like we played Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, we're playing a festival in Helsinki. And then we're like with I Hate God and shit. And the next night we're playing a small bar in fucking Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not the next night, but like, you know, out with earth moves and shit. But it was, yeah, it felt like hours later we were all just shot. You know?
Oh man, yeah, I could see your guy. I mean, you could see why there'd be a big European draw over there. So that makes a lot of sense. What are some of your favorite places that you guys have been, and maybe some of the places that didn't really measure up to that?
As far as like favorite place, I mean, when I'm in Europe, I'm always focused on like finding a gallery or whatever the fuck, you know. It's like, so I love Paris, of course. But I'm so focused on the art and stuff like that, and then we play on a bunch of club shows most of the time. I love Berlin. We have a lot of friends in Berlin. Berlin is like a fucking second home for us. Oh wow. London we sell out, and that's weird because we've only played a few times. London's really cool to us as far as shows go.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like cities and seeing things, you know, the Italian countryside, God. I love Switzerland, you know, like the Alps, because we follow the Alps like every time for some reason, like Austria across, and just all of that area. I miss it so much because I should be there, you know, right now. Fuck. Yeah, but I mean, Europe is just people are like, I think Mos Def said, like, you know, the rapper, he's like the best thing about being an American artist is a European audience. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We're so, I mean, we're like kind of jaded and shit here, like the way we act, you know, at shows. And there they fucking lose it. You know, they don't have like a hang up. Like, I'm not going to be cool if I wear the t-shirt or whatever the fuck, you know, it's like they're into it. And especially metal, it's a fucking religion. The festivals are amazing. It's a culture there. You know, there's people that are fans of ours. They're like a doctor couple that are in their 50s that show up with their war vests on and stuff, and they'll take the train from festival to festival. It's just fantastic. It's fucking humbling.
Yeah, man, I've heard that about Europe many times, and I think that goes back decades. I think that's the way
Yes.
for a long time, all the way back to whatever example you want to use, Hendrix going to England or what have you.
Totally, he had to be. It wouldn't have worked here.
Right.
It was too weird. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I've heard that before, and that's strange. It's strange, but it's good to have that. And I'm sorry that you guys can't experience that at the moment, and that it might not be a little while before you get to experience it again. But
you know, we just got to ride it. I mean, whatever.
Out.
We got very spoiled and very lucky from that shit. So, you know, I think about it like that. I'm not missing out on anything. I've had a really good run any fucking way if it ends tomorrow. So fuck it, you know.
Well, that's good, man.
Yeah.
When you guys are doing the Europe, do you guys have a band van? Do you guys take trains?
Oh, you got to rent the gear. You got to rent a driver. We always use a driver. I guess some people drive, which is a good idea to save money, but the hassle of that.
It must be pretty stressful to drive. Man.
Yeah, it would be. So getting a driver, plus the driver is usually, you know, I mean, he's bilingual. If he doesn't speak, you know, English, Italian, maybe German too, and it just helps out so much. And they know the area, and it's not a big deal. So, but yeah, we have to rent all that stuff, so that cuts into budget. So you got plane tickets to that, and gear rental, I hate Most store-bought amplifiers I think are garbage at this point because I've had a custom. I'm fucking spoiled at this point, and I've saved my money and I've bought the things that I wanted. Then I get used to that, and then I have to go there. I'm like, okay, all right, this is great. I'm just pissed. Like the tone's weird, and
right.
But you end up with that.
Are you bringing your axes over and just getting the rest, or you do not even bring your guitars over?
Oh, I bring my guitar. Yes, I can't. That would be just no. I can't do that kind of shit.
And then pedals as well.
Yeah, pedals and guitar. So I do have some control.
Yeah,
I do have some control. But I rely on my speakers and my amplifier. They hang out together. They do their thing. In their relationship. And then my pickups with that. I've just worked on this shit a while because I'm a nerd on that level. And I'm happy to be there and stuff. But it's like they're never seeing the well from here, right? They're never seeing us, which is our gear too. But maybe one day I'll be rich.
Yeah, man, that's always tricky when you're playing shows with different amps. It just never feels right, and you can never get the same sound, even if it's loud and it might be heavy, but it's the nuance is not even close, really. So, and I've seen your rig. I mean, that is a custom rig. So
yeah, and that's not going across it's not going across the pond. There's no way in hell, and so it's just like shit. What am I going to do?
Yeah. But people probably, one thing you hear about fans, audiences, like if you make mistakes or whatever on stage, they never know. And so most of them probably have they don't know the difference between the tones.
It's the energy. It's me being pumped to do the job. And like, you have to get used to using a new amplifier and get that relationship going, because it's a visceral issue that I'm having mainly, on stage with some shit that I'm not used to. Yeah, because I'll play the songs right and shit like that, but it's just like, okay, to get jazzed off of this fucking tone that I did not make essentially, it's just bullshit. Nobody gives a fuck,
Right.
it's it's just all my problem. So I just don't let anybody know,
Right. And then you guys went to Nepal, which was an interesting place for a gig. Was there a festival going on over there, and how was that experience?
That was, we had some fans from Chicago and who do restaurants up there that are Nepalese, and he's like, hey, I do this festival, Kathmandu. You guys want to play? And I was like, he hits me up after the show in Chicago, and I'm like, he's like, next year around this time. I'm like, sure, yeah, I hear all kinds of shit after shows. I'm like, absolutely, fucking nice dude though. And had a great little group of people with him. I hit it off. And then literally like 10 months later, he's like, okay, you guys ready to do this? And we're like, sure, whatever. So we booked a European tour right after it, and he flew us there. And we had 12 days. And we went the length of Nepal in a van, with a little entourage and shit. And it was fantastic. I've wanted to go to Nepal since I was about 16 or 17 years old. I've always been into Eastern philosophy and stuff, especially Tibet and Nepal and their influence on Buddhism and stuff like that, and how it was different there. And it was really weird that it was so specific to that. It was just like this, it's one of those experiences when things line up and it's like magic. And it was amazing. I flew to China. You get off of China and then you keep going. And then
talk about jet lag, man. That must have been.
I was so primed for this fucking trip.
Okay, so
that I stayed up. I was exhausting myself beforehand, like not sleeping for like a day and a half before I got on that plane, to where, with the help of some Xanax, it evened out like almost perfectly to where you just arrive and it's all backwards and shit. But that was we played a couple shows. And the kids are waiting for something there. But like, I don't know how many Western rock bands have played in Nepal, period. Like ever. Yeah. And that was the thing, it was, it's not a hot spot for money so nobody gives a shit. Mm-hmm. But what it is a beautiful life experience with some of the most wonderful people in the entire fucking world.
Wow.
And it's like, I mean, things made out of wood that are over 1,000 years old, like it's amazing. Architecture going where the Buddha was born. I played in that town, like Batwal, there's ox in the street, and I'm in this club that's like 2 stories and amazing, you know, playing on like the 2nd story stage, looking down at everybody, just weird shit.
Wow.
And then you go outside to smoke a cigarette, and there's ox, like ox and goats and shit in the street, and there's no street lights. And then you go in the club, and the club is like this European badass club. And you walk outside, it's like, what the fuck is going on? It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome, man.
I wanted to move there so bad. Like I was just like, this is like my place.
So so you did a few shows in Nepal, you said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so were most of the places, did they have that solid venue European vibe, or was that just one of them, and were the rest kind of just outposts?
Well, we did just a couple. So I don't know what the other bars are like. I didn't see any bars that look like that just walking around. We played the festival thing, and that was very nice, very well organized, very well done, packed. Kind of like more of the upper crust of Kathmandu, and like one of the heads of the police there was in the band that played before us. You know, it was like those level of people in the society. Wow. And it was really strange. And all the little girls, the mothers were all bringing the little girls up to Lisa. It was fantastic because they're like, look, you can do whatever you want, because like this is Nepal. I mean, their culture, like who knows, but they don't see girl rockers come in there and see that kind of shit. But she was a big deal, and all the little girls had their pictures taken with Lisa, and the mothers made sure that they knew. It was so fucking cool on so many levels. Like,
so we can wrap up Nepal pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But no. I wanted to hear one more thing about it, because well, my wife is actually from India. Now she's from kind of southern India.
Oh, right.
So she's not from northern India, but Nepal is in between China and India, correct?
Yeah.
And so what is, at least in terms of what you gleaned while you were there, what is the culture like there compared to an American or a European? You know, what is going on in Kathmandu?
Well, people are just, you know, they're holding on to their culture and just trying to survive in a more well, in the economy, you know. And you got these 2 fucking countries that will take advantage, India and China, sandwiching them, and they're using them against one another, essentially, because India and China like to fuck with each other. So you have these people in the middle who don't really care about all that shit. You know, they're just like doing their thing. They've always done that. You know, that was like a huge trade route forever. So it's a mix, and it's particular, like to culture and stuff like that. But it's like these people are getting like kind of the shitty end of the stick, because these 2 superpowers are like using them because of that border and shit, you know.
Right.
And they want to take over the economy. So some, you know, they'll influence of the communist thing here, and then, you know, whatever India's got going here, and they'll push in, and they'll give money, and they'll it's as you would expect. I mean, the culture itself is stable, but like the economics are an issue. And is it
like would you consider it like a second world country, or I mean, is it third world? It doesn't seem like
it's third world.
Okay.
It's definitely third world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and what's third world? That's for capitalists to, you know, monopolize, and that's what people try to fucking do. You know, I mean, and just, but these people are so mellow. Like, horrible traffic, no honking, no ugly faces, no swearing. I was like, oh, you know, you're gonna go to a temple, and like you're gonna get the vibe, whatever, you know, about what it's about. It wasn't the fucking temples, you know. It wasn't. And that their spiritualism is everywhere. You know, people are going around, you know, you touch the deity and all that stuff, but it was the people. And I see, because, you know, concepts of God are projections of ourselves. And I could see why, because they're even and mellow, you know, for the most part. And like that, why wouldn't it come from there? You know, it's like that was it. The profound stuff I got out of it was the people. And why, you know, how Buddhism and Hinduism mixed where it did there. And anyway, yeah, that's what's going on. And you know, of course, but you know, it's a poor country and people will exploit it, and that's, you know, they have to fucking tooth and nail. All that shit happened with their royal family and all that, where there was that weird murder and all that, and there's all kind of conspiracy about what happened with there. I mean, it's just two countries fucking with somebody small, like always, you know.
Yeah,
Name
such
of the
a
game.
wild. Those, I mean, China and India, they're such
Mm-hmm.
old cultures, man. 5,000
Yes.
years old, 6,000. So much stuff. To be sandwiched right in the middle of that. That's pretty unique.
And they have their own thing, you know, and they, you know, and a lot of people from Tibet, a lot of like whole Tibetan neighborhoods, it's all Buddhist. There's no beers, you know, in that area because everyone's Buddhist. So everything's pure. You see monks walking around, and that's the neighborhood and shit, you know. It's not like here you got like a Polish neighborhood or whatever. It still kind of looks the same, but there it's like, well, that's the Tibetan neighborhood. It's like a section, you know.
Monks and ox and goats.
Yeah, and you'll see that you're in a fucking city, and then there's just dogs everywhere. First of all, like dogs, they're street dogs. Yeah. And I made friends with a couple, and they would find me every night, like on my walk home, like the same dogs would see me across the street and just like stop and fucking bolt, you know, and just like because I pet them and I'm nice to them and shit. But
well, that's cool, man. Hopefully, you guys can get back there at some point because it sounds like a special experience for you.
And I talk to the guy weekly. Still, it's a big. I mean, we have a really good relationship with the people there, and it's just like family. I mean, like they take you in and you're visiting, you're basically a deity visiting the home, and they fucking everything is about you. They're pouring, you know, and they want to watch you eat and shit like that. It's beautiful. It's humbling as fuck. Man, it's amazing. But anyway,
that's dynamite, man. So what do you and the Well have planned in this uncharted territory ahead? Are you guys working on some new material? You guys come up without you guys being such a heavy touring band, obviously that's off the map for a while. You guys just kind of working on new material and seeing what happens over the next few months?
Yeah, I have enough to start a full album. I mean, right now, I write in sections. I like to have that sections, and I usually be able to write a verse, usually a riff, verse, and hopefully a chorus. And I have a bunch of those set up, and then I take it to practice, and then they throw their stuff on it, and then we make the song. You know, we serve the song. So I got a whole thing of those. Pretty soon I want to release a few covers. I think I might do like a Depeche Mode cover or something to put on Spotify or something like that, you know, some easy stuff. But that's it. Just, make another album and see what happens. It's going to be hard because we have to figure out safety stuff because we're all pretty paranoid. But it's doable. But we're all working. We're all ready to fuck. It's so funny when we get together, like we'll do like album signing stuff because we're doing a lot of that online purchase orders. I thank everybody who's done that because it's been really good for us. But we're doing a lot of signed albums and shit. So we get together and it's just like, fuck, you can feel the energy between all three of us. It's like we want to go back out again, you know?
Yeah.
And it's right there. It's just we have to figure out the safety issues and stuff. And I know other people are just going out and fucking doing stuff and jamming. We're just not like that. You know, we're a little bit more paranoid, I think, than some other people.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I think it's a wide range of how people respect the illness or are scared of the illness, just like society. Same with musicians. I've seen a wide range of things too, but I'm in the same boat. I don't think it's not worth rushing out there to do it and putting people.
No, and I have so much work I'll be doing alone that I don't do anyway, you know. And so it's like it has to be. I have to fucking get like that. It's like you could be doing so much more here. You don't require that, you know. Yeah. Technology. I have a metronome or whatever the fuck I need here, and there's no reason why I should make excuses why I'm not producing alone, or anybody really should, you know. And this is kind of the time because it's not about the party fucking jam time anymore. Right. It's about what you can do as an artist personally. And that's some fucking looking in the mirror shit. And I think this has been really good for me in that way, you know.
No, it's been the same way for me as well. Like right, probably April and May, it was like, well, you know, I love to practice. So I practice all the time. And with practice comes writing and all that stuff. But then probably mid-May, I kind of had somewhat of an epiphany about, all right, there has to be a new business plan, so to speak. And so I've been trying to focus a lot on YouTube and just digital stuff and just like prior, I put out albums, go on tours, all that stuff. But I've never been a content king. You know what I mean? I don't think
on those terms.
But
Yeah.
now I've kind of re-switched to
Mhm.
that just because of the nature of the times. It's like, this is what people want. They need
Mhm.
content. I have time to make it now. So that's kind of where, because there's just no telling what the hell, how long this thing is going to last and what have you. So,
Yes,
and
we have no idea, and that's
yeah,
getting a relationship with that is the main thing first. You know,
right. But
just
yeah,
fucking. Yeah.
from what I've heard, most artists musicians I've talked to, it's kind of a similar vibe. Like they've all found their little niche, however you pronounce it,
Mm.
in a new direction during this time, and
And it's
finding new ways.
personal.
Yeah, for
Yeah, you
sure.
see who the fuck you are instead of being
Right.
in a band. And I
Yeah.
associated myself with being in a band for a long time. I'm still in it, but it's like really, um, it's like what like how do I get turned on this level? Like stay inspired, just me.
Hmm.
It's cool. It's just it's not what it was. It's not just jamming with your bros and fucking coming up with shit anymore. It's like, what do you have inside that can keep you going? You know.
For sure, man. One thing I wanted to ask you about, which I wrote down because I just remembered it last night or the night before, is it was funny because it was been a year or two ago. I mean, we're friends on social media, so I
Mhm.
saw some picture you had at a show, or you posted and you had a Peter Tosh shirt, and I actually have the
Yeah.
same shirt. So I was, are you a Tosh fan, or did you just dig?
Oh, I'm a huge what I mainly listen to is reggae from the 70s. I've collected since
Me
I was
too.
12, around 12
Yeah,
years old. I found that
yeah.
the Sex Pistols listened to nothing but reggae when I was a kid. Like they were like, the Sex Pistols listen to nothing but reggae on the tour bus, reading all this old shit. And I was like, what? So you buy the fucking Bob Marley Legend tape, like
Right.
1989 or whatever it was.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what weird. And then fucking I was just all in. It was really hard to find back then. But yeah, yes, I'm a huge reggae nerd, and like nobody gives a fuck in the metal scene about this kind of stuff. Al from Sleep is the same way. He like makes his own dub stuff,
Mm.
like his dub plates or whatever. But I am very much in. I've been to Peter Tosh's grave. I know his cousin
Oh,
Donovan. I used to go to Jamaica every
wow.
year for my birthday. Yeah, I've
Really?
been to his house. I met his mother. I have photos with Peter Tosh's mother on her porch.
No. Oh
Because that's
my
what kind of fucking
God.
nerd I am. When I go, I'm like,
Oh,
well, so is she alive? Whatever. Like 93-year-old mother. I'm on her porch, like with her. She's this tall woman. It's like me in like a hat and shit.
wow. Well,
Yes.
now I'm really jealous because
Big.
I am a reggae nerd, so to speak, as
Mm-hmm.
well, and a huge Tosh nerd.
Yeah.
I've been into him since I was about 19 years
Yeah.
old, and
Yeah.
never relented on my passion
Go
for
to Jamaica if you
Tosh.
ever get a fucking chance, and go to his mausoleum in the off season. And
Yeah.
it's right in his yard. It's not like I've been to Bob Marley's too, but Peter's is much more humble, of course.
Hmm.
Fucking, and it's easy to do. You go to Jamaica, it's a short drive from anywhere because Jamaica's small as fuck. And go one day, just go, and you're gonna be fucking blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember going to Jamaica when I was younger with my family, but that was kind of
mm-hmm.
just your traditional,
Totally.
family
Yeah. Whoa.
vacation kind of thing. But we weren't making the trip to Tasha's grave at that point.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if I ever
exactly.
go back, it'll be a priority for
You
sure.
went lick chalice in the carport and shit.
Exactly.
Like because that's the whole experience got very strange that day. It was really weird because we were the only tourists there, so we get time to just chill. And he's like, "You want to go meet?" You want to go meet Granny? And I'm like, he's like, yeah, Pete's mom. And I'm like, yeah, she lives the back of the fucking property. So we just walked back there and I'm at her house.
Dude, that is crazy. I've seen what she looks like because I think she's in.
A documentary where
Yeah,
she talks about it. Like my
yeah,
pious woman. Yeah,
yeah.
we're very
She seems
Christian.
so old in that. So was this like in the mid '90s, early '90s, or was this more?
No, this was early 2000s. She was 93 years old when I met her, and she died like I guess a year or two after that. Yeah.
Wow,
But
that's
yes,
big time, Ian.
it was
That's the
fucking
source.
huge for me, and nobody gives a fuck about that story.
I
But
do.
I'm glad you do. I'm glad you brought that up. But yes, I've been there a few times, and I spent time there for my birthday. I'd spend a week, and we would go all over because I didn't give a fuck about the beach. I wanted to go inland where people got inspiration for making this music I love so fucking much. The little parishes and shit. Just
Yeah.
going to the interior cockpit country and the Blue Mountains and all that, and there's on the edges, it's tourist trap. But you go in and you see Jamaica, and fucking people of Jamaica, and it's just the openness. And, you know.
Did you, I mean, I don't doubt that there's a lot of beauty in there, but I know it's really rough in Jamaica. I mean, did you
Fuck
see
yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah.
some of the worst
Don't
ghettos in
wander
the
off
world?
backpacking.
Yeah. Did you get into Kingston, like the real bad areas of Kingston, or just steer clear of that?
I didn't even go to Kingston.
Okay, yeah.
And that's, they say, you know, that's fucking, all the Rastas I met and stuff, they're just like, we don't even fuck with Kingston. It's like, you know, to prepare yourself to go to Kingston, it's just like, they know how violent it is. You know, everybody knows how violent, and I don't want anything to do with that. I mean, like, it'd be nice to maybe check out some record stores or whatever, but I really don't care to go to Kingston, you know, because everybody was from the outskirts anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's better to go to those places. And then immediately when you get there, if you're a fucking reggae fan, you know, when it's like a part of you, and when you get there and feel it, just the rhythm and movement, you know why this music is what it was, you know, like why it came, and it just grew like that. And it's fucking there, and it's weird. It's like, you know, that natural mystic shit, it's totally real. You can fucking feel it if you're receptive to it, you know. I mean, you've been, but yeah, after being this, like, so much reggae stuff, and like, it's you just know, you know, it's a fucking fantastic place, but it is dangerous as shit, and it's poor, but it's only dangerous because it's so poor, and it's so economically squeezed, right? It's not the fucking people, though. I mean, that is not their disposition, that is their desperation, right? I mean, it just, you know.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I want to thank you, Ian. One more kind of question for you, just because you're a working musician, and a successful working musician, and a original, you know, force in the community, and travel the world, and you have a kick-ass band, and you've been affected by the COVID as much as anybody, because of, you know, your work has been cut out. Do you have any, and you're an insightful guy, you've been in Nepal, you've met Peter Tosh's mother, do you have any more kind of insight or thoughts on, as a music community, not just in Austin, but kind of countrywide, worldwide, and any thoughts you've had in your time about maybe where we're headed from here? Or it doesn't necessarily need to be the most grandiose thoughts, or anything at all you've kind of gleaned from the experience we've had and where we're headed.
If we're talking about politically, or about the United States,
I'm talking more about the music thing, but you're welcome to go into anything politically. If
I think, well, I mean, as artists, what are you know, what are you? You're a fucking you're a barometer. As an artist, the nervous system obviously is a little bit different than the 9 to 5 person. And that sensitivity, the environment, you're sensitive to your environment. It's I think that we're in a beginning of a wonderful creative time because of this level of stress, you know, and the reaction to the stress. So I think artistically, I think we're in a great shape. People having to stay home and shit, you know, like, that's personal, because art's personal. Granted, we have these fucking phones that have fucked up our art over the last 15 years. You know, people aren't reading anymore because you don't have to. Also, you get off just like that, you know. And the stimulus, I need some stimulus. You used to have to read a book or whatever. Now it's right here. Yeah. You know, so whatever that means, you know, fucking. But I think this has brought us back. I think there's going to be a lot more reconfiguring as far as the United States goes, which influences the entire world. This has been a very revealing era of our issues, of where we're broken. We've been broken. We've been putting a Band-Aid over it and hiding it. And but in these times, as long as there's freedom to do so, there's going to be a lot of fucking art and sensitive people that are with the disposition. It's going to be great when it opens up, right? I think it's going to be different. Hopefully, and we'll be more of a fucking community and not so jaded as we were.
Yeah. No, I think that's on point. I think kind of leveling any things we're used to or take for granted is a good point that you're making, and just kind of feeling the gratitude for how lucky we are for this or for that, whether it be as Westerners or United States citizens or artists who get to perform on a regular basis. You know, I think you're right about that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to shuck off a lot of the bullshit people who are just in it for the party. And I think some really good creative stuff. I mean, you know, I try to be optimistic all the time because you have two choices. You can be optimistic or pessimistic, and they're both bullshit. They're both conceptual.
Right.
So why not go with the optimism?
For sure.
You know? So yeah, I'm optimistic about everything. Like I have no fucking idea what's going to happen, and that's awesome. You know?
What I'll let you go here in a minute, and I really appreciate it. What have you been reading recently?
Recently, I've been really delving into occult studies.
I thought I saw something you posted about Crowley. Were you reading something?
Yeah. Well, Crowley's been a big deal for me since I was a kid. I got to Robert Anton Wilson, if anybody's familiar with that. It's like a sci-fi writer which focused on occult stuff, and he's the one who turned me on to that as a kid. You know, as an acid head, and it was like that. You know, it was like far out. He introduced me to quantum physics and all these concepts, which goes right along with Crowley, which goes right along with these practices, the Western mysticism and shit, which is just an interpretation of Eastern stuff, and just put in this way, people take it for something completely different. But I get a lot from it, you know, and I love reading about this stuff and the metaphors. I just it's a huge hobby of mine. It's a big part of my life is researching this shit, and I've had a lot of time to do it. And it's been fantastic. I've got 16 books I've been reading, and yeah. So that's what I've been doing. Completely going into weirdo world. That's what I've been doing.
That's great. That's a good place to go, man.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it, man. I look forward to hearing.
Thanks for the option.
Yeah, dude. I look forward to hearing what the Well has cooking right now, and whenever
me
that'll
too.
come out.
I have not.
But yeah, dude. Thank you once again, and hopefully we can do this again in maybe a year or two or something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, whenever you want, man. I'm always down to talk about myself. So.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
Take care.